Hey, Podnutzians, welcome to DDG episode 223. This is Door to Door Geek here, trying to do Linux podcast for all sorts of users, the advanced users to the extreme noobs. We have combined, aka me, I don't even know how long. It has to be at least 13 years in Linux. I've done everything in my power to not become a gray beard. Hope you're not watching the video right now. While still remaining a normal user, being able to communicate with normal users. That's been my goal all along. First thing I got to mention in this show is we here at Podnutz have lost what I consider to be a very good friend, a really good man, Eric Ardini. He's been on basically every Podnutz show I can think of, except maybe this show, Linux for the Rest of Us. He's been on Android App Addicts. I honestly don't even know how long it's been that long. He's been on Android App Addicts. Roughly about 8 weeks ago, he was diagnosed with a form of liver cancer that was very vicious and quick. And about 5 days ago, he passed away. There is a GoFundMe going on right now to try to help support him. I'm going to do a 24-hour podcast this weekend, April 13th, starting at noon on Saturday through the 14th, Sunday noon. At least that's the goal. And if you want to be involved in any shape, way, or form, all you got to do is shoot me an email during that broadcast, and I will send you back a Hangouts link. For right now, at least the goal is to do it over Google Hangouts, just for simplicity's sake. I don't expect anyone to have good audio. It's really nothing more than just a hangout, talk with people, talk about things that are cool, and see if we can get Eric's family a little bit more money to help with this transition in life after Eric Ardini. If anyone has stories or anything that they would like to say about Eric, that would be, I think, a really good time to do it. I will say, I don't know who's going to be on with me. It's going to be a wild card kind of thing. It can be random listeners, or it can be other hosts from the Podnutz network. I didn't give anybody a lot of notice because I honestly wasn't sure if I could talk about Eric without breaking down. The last couple of days have not been good. Starting yesterday, I started to be able to talk about him and maintain. So I think this weekend I should be good to do it. If you want to partake, do not forget, shoot me an email, any email, mail at podnutz.com, door-to-door-geek@gmail.com, podcast at linuxfortherestofus.com. You can hit me off on Twitter with a DM or a mention. You can join our Mattermost server and mention me there. Our Discord server, mention me there, and I will also try to be on IRC, or you could look at the YouTube video and merely comment into that. We might try to do a little cross audio with Discord, but I'm not going to promise that as of just yet. I know crossing streams with audio sometimes can lead to feedback and distortion. I also have a page right now set up. Right now, it's just a redirect, podnutz.com/support Eric. By the time that show goes on, I'm going to try to have at least something on that page for people if they want to join, to easily communicate with me and easily hop on the feed. I've literally always said since the beginning of this show, and since my first time on any podcast, support those who support you. And I will say Eric did everything to support us. He went over above and beyond to help me out whenever I asked for it to be on a show, even if he didn't think he was interested on it, just because it was an opportunity to sit down and talk with people. So I would like to try to do at least my part to try to help him. I've already donated money. I'm going to try to donate more money, but in the meantime, at least I can try to drum up people to hopefully go and help with their support. Okay. Okay. Also, do not forget, September 20th through 22nd, Grand Rapids, Michigan, TECHCON Unplugged. It's a conference, it's event being put on by Jeff Hallish from the Computer Repair Podcast and Paco LeBron from Tech Life, Podnutz Daily, in conjunction with Marvin B from Podnutz Pro and with help from Matt from the Computer Business Marketing Podcast, which I think it's right now in the middle of changing names. Guys like Matt Rainey's going to be there. Martin Urbani is going to try to be there. Mike Tech is going to be there. If you don't know Mike Tech, then I don't know. You need to go watch some Mike Tech. There are a few guys out there with as much experience, as much gristle with doing computer repair as him. And if you're at all considering getting into computer repair, computer support, entrepreneurship of your own, I definitely encourage you to try to be at that event. If you just want to learn more about computers and how to take care of them, that will also be a good event to make good connections with a lot of smart people. Another guy who's going to be there is John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. There are a few people I've met who freely will push information on you if he thinks it will help you in any shape or form than John. John's going to be there. John is a hell of a good guy. So I'm going to make it there. We're going to have fun. We're going to chat, BS, have fun, laugh at people, including in with the price of the ticket, which I believe is $200. You will get basically all your food and snacks taken care of, and you will also get a gift card to go to Dave and Buster's, which is basically directly across the street from the event. The hotel and the event are in the exact same building, so you do not have to go far. So it's all going to be right there, hyper local, if you will, and we'll be able to have a good time. That'll be another occasion where if you have good stories about Eric, I think it'll be a very good place if you want to share them. It's not easy to transition out of something like that, but I will say, no matter what I do for the rest of my like live long podcasting days, I can tell you this. Every time I sit down and podcast, I'm going to be thinking about Eric. I'm going to be thinking about all the people that have helped me throughout the years, whether it's Steve Cherbino, Tim Kelly, whether it be Jose, Ellis Owens, Jeff Owens, Josh Knucklehead Tech, Jonathan Nadeau, Cody Cooper, on and on and on. All the guys that have honestly helped make Podnutz what it is. But in the world of Linux, it is a never sitting still ramblings going on is the only way I can put it. A lot of stuff has been going on with the enterprise space, the server space, the server closet kind of thing. And to be honest, I find most of that to be not very entertaining or not very like controversial to talk about, which is why I'm really happy that Linus Torvalds exists, because he doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just wants to talk about stuff that he deems potentially important. And there's a link over on ZDNet, which is in literally like covered head to toe with ads. I'm running this in Firefox, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to change this image that I show on the web page to a different browser, like maybe Brave or something else, just because this is getting really bad. But there's a interview basically mentioned in this article from Stephen J. Von Nichols, where a guy sits down and talks with Linus about the state of the Linux desktop. They first kid around and joke a little bit because you have to, because everybody makes fun of the idea of the Linux desktop. But he says basically that it is in trouble, and I have to agree with him. It absolutely is in trouble. What he mentions is that it really needs to worry about Android and Chrome. The big, like, for instance, I'll give you is that the Chrome desktop, the Chrome development team announced last week that they realize that you need to have stuff like video editing on the Linux desk or on the Chrome desktop, or else it's kind of pointless. This was from TFIR. I have no idea what this channel is, but the guy sitting down giving the interview with Linus Torvalds is a guy who I've seen his face thousands of times around the world of Linux. He apparently, I believe started his own website up. And he's a really smart guy. He talks a lot about Linux. He sits down and Linus basically says Android and Chrome are in position to become the Linux desktop that people look at and experience. And I have to agree with him. And I will say I've had in the past to what I think is to be one of the best non-Windows, non Microsoft experiences with a device, and that was my Jide Ultra Remix tablet. It was basically a tablet computer flipped up with a good keyboard on it. It was basically a hardware emulation of the Microsoft Surface 2. But it was running Android. It was running the Remix OS desktop, and it was unbelievably good. No, it was not a full-featured desktop, but 99.99% of the users out there do not need a full-featured desktop. They just need something that works. You could browse the internet, you could browse Facebook, you could browse YouTube, you could do simple emails, you could do simple little apps. You could do, all of the, WeChat or any other Telegram or Signal kind of thing you wanted to do, because it was also Android, it basically meant you had the complete Android Play Store available to you. So, there wasn't too much you could not do on that device, but you could not run full-blown Linux on it. That was one of the shortcomings. Chromebooks now, you can run Android apps on a select breed of Chromebooks. And to be honest, the Android experience on them is not bad. It's not like a phone because most apps are not built for phone, for tablets size interfaces. So it might not be completely normal. Android apps are typically also not made for a mouse, so it might not completely fit, but I can tell you on my, Asus Chromebook Flip, I believe it's the first generation one. I am genuinely shocked how functional that device is as well. Now, technically, it's running the Linux kernel in the background, and now you've been able to run Crouton and Crostini for years, for literally, I think, 3 or 4 years. It's not like running native Linux. It's running Linux in essentially in a VM, in a jail, in a chrooted environment. It doesn't have full native hardware access, so there's certain things you just could not do in them. Well, now that it's officially supported by Linux, they're putting a little bit more work into it, and like they're implementing the full audio stack in it. So you will be able to do a good deal more on it, is what I'm going to say. You're also going to be able to put direct links in your Chrome launcher, basically like deep link into a Linux application installed in that, basically in a VM. Um, And with those 2 things progressing and moving forward, that is what looks like is going to be the acceptable Linux desktop here for the next 2 years, unless something drastically changes. One of the things that Linus complains about is basically the fragmentation, and I really don't like that word fragmentation, but he complains about the fragmentation in the Linux desktop. And I will say, um, what I don't like about the Linux desktop is how no Linux desktop has a smooth introduction experience. Doesn't matter if you load OpenBox, Fluxbox, i3, Rat Poison, GNOME, KDE, Plasma, Mate, Cinnamon, any of them, Bungie, any of them. The very first time that you launch it, it does not give you an introduction as a new user on how to use this desktop, how to maximize your usage in it. What are some good workflow examples in it? Now, if you take the time to sit down and learn any of these desktops, they're all really useful and functional, and you can get virtually everything done in them. But they are very different. It would be nice if we would have our nerd desktops in the background that we could load and we could run if we wanted to. But it would be nice if there was a standard desktop, which will never happen in Linux. But it would be a really nice thing if we could download OpenSUSE, Fedora, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, Slackware, any of them, and just load it up, and by default, we would have a very similar desktop across them that would make it a little bit easier for people to switch or to go into different desktops. Also, it would be easier if you if you were helping somebody running their very first instance of L Linux, you wouldn't have to precede their question and then go back with, like, 10 different questions. What is the distro that you're running? What is the version that you're running? What is the desktop that you're running? And, all these questions before you can actually help them. That's one of the reasons why terminal commands seem to be the easiest way to help people, because as long as you know the distribution, then the terminal commands should work. Most new users do not want to type things in the terminal, so it's a little bit cumbersome to help them because they don't really feel like it's a natural progression. So I understand Linus saying a standardized desktop. And that's what you get when you run Android on a laptop, on a tablet, or on a phone. You get a standardized desktop, even if you get a Samsung or an HTC or a Xiaomi or a Huawei or an Oppo or a OnePlus One or a Motorola, or any of them, and you boot it up for the first time, you're going to be able to get around that interface because it's very much like every other Android interface. Chrome OS. Once you've ran basically any Chrome OS, you can basically navigate your way around any other Chrome OS. So that it's ubiquity. It's very easy to go back and forth. In the world of Linux, we don't have that. Um, he believes if we had that, we could be much more successful. I have to agree. If we had some ubiquity along the desktops, I think it would be much easier. I didn't always say. I said for like the last 2 or 3 years, I don't understand, since now installation media is so huge. Why don't we have the choice during the installation to pick a desktop? Why can't I just download a Ubuntu CD, start to install it, and during the install process, it can ask me and give me a little preview. Would you like a KDE desktop? Would you like a GNOME desktop? Would you like a Mate desktop? Would you like a Cinnamon desktop? And just let me have the options. So that's when I tell somebody to download the Ubuntu, only have to give them one link, and then I can tell them, this is the desktop I use. You can install that one if you want. But there's no desktop that does it. They all have their favorites. They all have their favorite child, and they all like to act like the other children don't exist. Um, I do think it's gonna be a hindrance. I do think it's gonna slow down Linux, adoption, no matter how you look at it. And a super quick tangent divulgence. I've basically had to unsubscribe from every Linux podcast in the universe, except for Going Linux, Distro Watch, and maybe one or two more. It's because I really could not stand listening to people speak on things, consistently state them as facts, yet consistently be completely wrong or apparently do zero research before they talk about stuff. I try to only state a fact as a fact when I am absolutely 100% sure at that moment in time it is a fact. And if it is not a fact, I try to make it clear to everyone it is a opinion. The example I'm going to use is what was it? Oh man, I'm trying to remember. I'll try. This is one of the problems with doing the show by myself. When I get an idea in my head, and then I try to set it up, and then I forget about it. Mm, I'll just say, if you the stupidest people I've ever met in my life proclaim that they're intelligent. The smartest people I've met in my life proclaim that they're normal intelligence. If you need to know what that means, what that entails, how that becomes, just do a quick Google search on Dunning-Kruger effect and in an imposter syndrome. A lot of the Linux podcasts I listen to definitely suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect. They like know 5%, so then but they think they know the entire world. Then you listen to like Going Linux, where they're like average intelligence in Linux, and they know it. So when people ask them a question that they don't know, they do the research and then they come back and answer. So everybody's smarter. So, um, you know, I've now like cut down my podcast. I'm down to like 150. So, I will say, uh, I still think Linux is gonna be fine. I honestly think, we Linux users are still gonna be in the niche, unless we get actual some sort of desktop supremacy. I also think we do not have to worry about viruses or infections or any of that stuff for at least the time being. Um, I do have an email I wanna get to. The main reason being if I get to the email, then I'm going to be forced to do the proper research on the email and properly answer him in the email back. It's been in my inbox for at least a month. It's been difficult to research, is what I'm going to say. So if anybody out there has an answer to this kind of thing, don't hesitate. Podcast at linuxfortherestofus.com. It says, "Hi, I've been listening to you for you a long time, and I thought of you to ask a question that I haven't been able to answer via Google. What Linux desktop music player can I use that will write my playlist changes to an M3U file kept in a main music folder? I don't want to always have to export playlists. Uh, just always use the M3U file all the time. Use case, I think all my music uh, be between my phone and various computers. I use Neutron player, which can save M3U changes using the path format music artist album track .mp3. And I can't believe while an Android app can just keep a playlist file up to date, I can't find a Linux player that will do the same. Have you ever come across a Linux app that can do this? Now I want to check my email really quick by just going over here, MU3, M3U. That's one of the reasons why I can't find it. I will say, I don't want to say I think he was looking at this wrong because that's unbelievably insulting. But what I want to say is the last thing you want to do is limit yourself to um to only one thing. Okay, I did find a tutorial and it was using VLC to create your playlist in an XSF PF format. And basically all it said was the playlist is this directory. And that's what it sounds like you're looking for. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to see if I can find new new Neutron music player and if it supports XSPF extensions because that's the way you can basically say in this playlist contains everything in these files and folders. And that sounds like what Android is doing. And I will say Android music players are virtually all based upon Linux free open source applications, but they have a very high level of polish on every one of them that I've seen. Um, Without any doubt, I'll say I think that is absolutely the case. So anything that an Android music player can do, a Linux music player can do too. Unfortunately, I'll say you might have to change music players. Um, and to go from Linus complaining about too many desktop choices, I thought this was an appropriate link because I like tiling window managers, and over here on TechMit, they have the 10 best tiling window managers for Linux. Um, it's a little difficult sometimes to explain to someone who does not know what a tiling window manager is and how it acts and reacts. In a lot of ways, it like acts and reacts like an archaic computer back from the late 80s. What happens is you load an application, and most of the time that application will literally take up the entire desktop. And to get the application to not take up the entire desktop takes work. Or if you want to split the windows, you can have them side by side or top bottom or some arrangement like that, but it isn't something that you might naturally know. But I like tiling window managers because I can do everything I need to do on the keyboard itself. And by everything, not really everything, but virtually everything from moving windows, changing windows, re sizing windows, partitioning windows, and sometimes joining windows, changing desktops, everything from my keyboard itself. I only have to go to my mouse at a very little bit of time. I will say, if you choose to try any of these tiling window managers, the number one thing I will encourage you that you have to do is you have to download a cheat sheet or make your default page in your web browser one of their cheat like sheets that show you all the key strokes to get things done, or else you're going to be um in a really hard place because you're just gonna wanna quit. It's like the first time you use, VI and you don't know what you're doing, it might take you 20 minutes to exit VI. Same thing with these tiling window managers. If you don't know the proper keystrokes, you're going to be in a world of hurt. If you like your trackball mouse or you have your mouse and you love to use your mouse to work in your desktop, you probably don't wanna use a tiling window manager. I will say that they list 10 of them. Number 1, I3. Basically, you can stop right there. I got no problem saying that out loud. I3 is really configurable using mostly human readable text in their configuration file. Their configuration file is easily shareable, easily backupable, and di- uh, um, um, easily put onto a brand new computer, and everything basically looks the same from computer to computer. Um, Going down the list, BSPWM, I have heard of that one. I've never ran it. I will say I do like the look of it, the feel of it. I3 is definitely very flat, not a lot of curved edges, not a lot of colors. This one, I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Herbs, Herb Stalufin WM. I have no idea. But I definitely like the look on this one. This one definitely looks more advanced than your normal, tiling window manager. Awesome, awesome window manager is fantastic, but it is so impossible to search for on Google because it's called Awesome, and that's a little bit bad. The main reason I stopped using Awesome is because I believed it was stopped I believe it was deprecated. I thought it wasn't getting any single updates for like 3 years, and it didn't get any updates. All of a sudden, like 2 months ago, got an update. But I still believe it's not gonna be compatible with Wayland-enabled desktops, AKA, in the next year or 2, you might not be able to load Awesome on whatever distro that you choose to download, where i3 is Wayland compatible. So that's why I went to i3. Um Tilix, Tilix. I did actually run this one for a while. This one, I wanna say, was one of the ones where you definitely had to use right click a fair amount to get things done, and to me, that was counterproductive. I don't like using right click. Xmonad to me was the same thing. You definitely need a little bit of, clicking involved. Sway, this is the one that I have not had a chance to try out yet. This one was a Wyland compatible i3 window manager. So this one definitely caught my eye. So I'm gonna definitely have to try this one out, at least in a VM, see if it's any good. Uh, T Mux isn't really a desktop; it's a terminal multiplexer. So we're gonna stop reading the list right now. I'm not gonna go any further because they left desktops behind. Um, Next link in the notes. We actually did bring a lot of these kinds of links um, years ago. Um, we were at least, semi fascinated with the idea of creating your own distribution, and, on, Analytics India, it looks like. They have a listing of 5 tools that will help you create your own Linux desktop. It does not look like any of these are as robust as the tools that we had back in the day, but back in the day, I will say I think things were a little bit simpler, and you could make one tool that seemed to work on a multitude of distributions, and it seems like those days might be over. There's a little bit more complexity in each distro, so what we're seeing is a lot of tools heavily geared towards a single distribution, and then you can recreate that one distribution. But the very first one I've never heard of, Linux re spin, and it says it's a fork of the discontinued remaster sys. Remaster sys to me was the most fully developed, fully functional, full featured one of these tools I've ever seen in my life. So the fact that it's a fork of that tool makes me feel a hell of a lot better about giving this one a try. It was very easy to set up default profiles. It was very easy to set up default applications. It was very easy to set up default configurations in those applications as well. So if there is one I'm going to suggest anyone takes a look at, it is Linux Respin. If it's anything like re master sits, what you can also do is hypothetically, you like to use Ubuntu Mate, hypothetically. You download Ubuntu Mate, then you might spend between 3 and 35 hours tweaking things, downloading applications, setting configurations, getting everything what you consider to be just right. What you can then do is run this tool, and basically it will make a installable image of everything you currently have installed and configured. So if you want that same type of desktop with the same applications, with the same feel on a different computer, you can use this kind of tool to basically copy the operating system. So I thought that was definitely a very good one. That is definitely on my list to download and at least play with for a couple minutes. After this, it gets either obscenely difficult or extremely simplified or focused, is what I'm going to say. After that, Linux from scratch. Yeah, that's kind of like tools that will help you create your own distro, but you're literally like the maintainer of your distro too. This is the tool you use when you don't want to create your own distro, but you want to understand the creation process of a distro. So, yes, you can, but in reality, you use this because you want to learn what it takes to create a distribution. After that, you have uh, Ping Builder, which is really heavily geared towards Ping OS, which is fine, which is fair. There are many people out there that really like Ping, and I will not say they're wrong. It was a pretty smooth desktop, a pretty smooth experience. Definitely more mouse focused than I'm accustomed to, but I will say, in a pinch, I would definitely use that distribution. After that, you have Ubuntu Customization Kit. I did use this at least 1 or 2 times in the past, and I was pretty satisfied with it, is what I'm gonna say. It was definitely only Ubuntu focused, but if you are a Ubuntu user and you like to create your own distribution or your own spin for your own personal use kind of thing, very acceptable, very usable, very easy to use. Then we have SUSE Studio, SUSE Studio. If you like OpenSUSE RPM-based distributions at all, I can tell you right now, SUSE Studio will take any amount of work you put into creating a distribution, and it will make it so simple the next time you want to install. I'm not a huge fan of RPM distributions, period. Pause, deep breath. But OpenSUSE and SUSE in general is among, in my opinion, the most solid desktop RPM experience you can get consistently, version after version after version. Is it the best? I don't know. I mean, the people who love Fedora seem to love it a lot. I'll just say I had an easier time, a easier on ramp when I was using SUSE. So I thought that was a really good tool. Very good 5 tools. Um, The next thing I'm bringing up specifically because Nightwise, if you don't know who Nightwise is, Nightwise.com, cross-platform guy. He mentioned he tried to do X forwarding. X forwarding on the Linux desktop is basically, it's kind of like RDPing, except it isn't. You can have your low powered computer sitting in front of you, your high powered computer off on the other side of your network, and you can do what's called X forward to where you can launch, hypothetically, Firefox on your low end computer, but it's actually using all the resources of your high end computer and just sending you the display over the network. And it appears to you like on your computer, like you're running it locally, and it should be quicker, but it's actually using the other computer. Well, with all that said, it still isn't extremely fast. You are still going to have lag even if you're on a really, really good network. So it has its use cases. If you're just typing out an email or working on a spreadsheet, copying files, moving files, it works great. It works really good. In fact, I've used it even on small pocket sized computers, like my pocket chip, like my Z2 Zip It and other form factors. I've exported into bigger computers and ran stuff and it ran fine. But this tool here says it's explicitly designed for stuff like video editing and CAD working. Hey, if you think you're going to work on CAD remotely, you better have low latency. You better have really low latency. So I was very happy to see that AnyDesk, ANYDESK, is completely cross platform, will work on Linux, and for a non commercial license, it's absolutely free. So I'm going to definitely shoot this link to Nightwise, see if he can give it a try, see if he feels better with this. What I was not able to tell yet is it a direct peer to peer connection, AKA a trust nobody connection? Or is this the kind of software where it insists on contacting the mothership and makes the connections through the mothership? There are pros and cons to each one of them. Okay. If you go through the mothership, the pro is you never have to configure anything on your router. You'll be able to always connect from anywhere to anywhere with no issues. The bad, you're then relying on big, like brother, to have your best interest at heart and to always remain in business and to always have that portal up and running and that server up and running, or else the software won't work at all. If it's a peer to peer connection, that company can go destroy in a fire. Your software will still work just fine. But if you want to connect across a um, um, network, like from your local Starbucks back to your home network, then you're going to have to open up firewall rules and ports in order to get stuff to connect. So there is no perfect. There is no perfect at all. We have to make our decisions which one we like better. And I'm not sure which solution this uses, but it swears it's great for low latency things like CAD video editing. It also has online uh, collaboration, so you have multiple people in the same workspace, which is kind of mind-boggling. Built-in file transfer, lightweight, has to be lightweight or else it isn't snappy, and you can record sessions. I will say I'm a big fan of the idea of recording video sessions just to make it easier for the next person trying to do whatever you're trying to do. Next link, honestly, I don't feel good about. It's one of those things I have very mixed feelings about. I'm always happy when I hear private conglomerate companies acknowledging Linux exists. It means that we've made it to at least some point of acceptance, some point of popularity, some port of necessity. So then they have to start to acknowledge that Linux exists. But once they acknowledge Linux exists, then I'm sure they're just looking at how they can use it for their best interest, how can they use it for their own shareholders' best interest, kind of thing. So I don't really want them on my Linux computer. Peanut butter and chocolate goes great together, but, peanut butter and grape juice, I don't think it goes great together. I'm just gonna go out on a limb, you know? I don't think it would. And here's the link, Microsoft's Visual Studio Code arrives on Linux as a Ubuntu snap. Um, Whether it's a snap or a Flatpak or an app image, it doesn't matter. All you gotta know is it's now easier to install. Now, with a Ubuntu snap, just means on Ubuntu-based systems, it will be easier to install. And here's the real reason I have mixed feelings about this. Every developer that I trust, who I know has experience in multiple IDEs, they've been doing this for more than 3 or 5 years. They really know what they're talking about. And they have experience in whether it is Geary, Eclipse, uh, there's a whole bunch of them. I can't think of ATONA. There's a whole lot of them. They all say without any hesitation that the best IDE they've used is Visual Studio by far. It is the easiest to use, the most functional, the least amount of crashes. So if you're a developer and you only use Linux, now you can use Visual Studio Code on Ubuntu based systems in a very easy fashion. It's basically just an apt install away. I'm never going to use it. I would rather have a harder time using my Linux desktop than rely on Microsoft Code for any workflow. Only because I know as soon as I install it and start to use it and start to like it, the clock is ticking. It's either going to be deprecated, it's either going to have functionalities behind a wall where I'm going to have to install Windows, or it's just going to go away and they're going to decide to not support it anymore. And that's just me. That's a decision that I make. Okay, next one is on a Phoronix website. And I will say it was kind of almost ironic that when I loaded all my tabs up for this show, this tab took forever to load. Coincidence? I don't know. I guess it is. But Phoronix has the fastest Linux distributions for web browsing, Firefox plus Chrome benchmarks on 8 distributions. Now, here's the real truth, which I hate saying out loud. It almost doesn't matter how quick, how snappy, or how optimized 99.999% of all the applications are on any given distribution, because everybody in the world uses a web browser. Not everybody uses a music player. Not everyone uses an IDE. Not everyone even uses terminal-based tools. Not everyone uses OBS. Not everyone uses Geary or gedit or Nano or any other thing, but everybody basically uses a browser. And with every day that goes on that passes, we use browsers for more and more and more functionality. So it's becoming an operating system onto itself, is what I'm going to say. So I thought it was very interesting to just measure benchmark speeds for browsers. Now, they only benchmark 2 browsers. The dirty secret is there's really only 2 browsers, whether it's Brave, Vivaldi, or any of the other graphical browsers with an asterisk. They're really based off of either Chrome or Chromium or Firefox. Now there are Linux only ones that are not based off of either of these two, but the user base for them, I'm sure, is insanely low. And then, of course, you have your text-based browsers in the terminal that are, again, the use cases and the number of users are extremely low. But they went through and they benchmarked Chrome and Firefox and a bunch of distros. And I will say, not shocked when I went to the benchmarks. I was really impressed that ClearOS, not surprisingly, was basically the best all around, is what I'm going to say. ClearOS is an Intel focused distribution that I can't believe I haven't used yet. I don't know why I haven't used yet. Guys like Ike Doherty are helping make it better. When Ike works on something, it's inevitable. It's going to get better quicker than most other things. It just seems like that's like one of the rules of this universe that we live in. Um, with Intel graphics cards, discrete graphic cards on the horizon, I'm going to expect that if I'm running a Intel discrete graphic cards, I'm probably going to go out of my way to run clear Linux because I would expect it to be even more snappy, even better performing. So I will encourage people out there, if you want to try another distribution and you want to use it as your main desktop browsing computer, I definitely encourage you check out Clear Linux. If you do, don't hesitate, shoot me an email, podcast at Linux for the rest of us, and let me know your findings, how it feels, how it looks, how it moves, how it performs for you. Because these numbers, while they're not groundbreakingly destroying other distributions, they're consistently at least a little bit better, is what I'm going to say. And that's to me kind of impressive that they can do that. Um, Last link is on GitHub, and it's from Kickball, and it's awesome dash self hosted. And this is just a list. This is the kind of thing I literally just bring to a show just so I have it bookmarked for myself forever now. Whenever I know, man, what was that self hosted list? I can just go to Google, type in podcast, Linux for the rest of us, space self hosted, and I'm going to get this link. This is basically a long link of self-hosted tools from analytics, automation, blogging, bookmarking, calendaring, email, mail delivery, webmail, IRC, SIP, XMPP, social networks and forums. Google Plus is dead. Social networks and forums. The next one might be in there that we might want to use. I don't know. Self-hosted DNS, conference management, content management, e-commerce, feed readers, ebook libraries, file sharing, distributed peer-to-peer, object storage, single click and drag, web-based file managers, games, gateways, groupware, human resources management, learning courses. It keeps going on and on and on and on and on. I love the idea of self-hosted applications because then not only am I accountable for their security, but I also know what they're doing, when they're doing, why they're doing, and I can limit their resources. I will say I would love to be able to play with these on Raspberry Pi devices. There's a doubt in my mind. Only a small fraction of these are installable on the Raspberry Pi. But this to me was a great list. I really hope it just keeps getting updated, is what I'm going to say. Let me see if I can quickly see an update date. 11 days ago. So that's good. That's good. 11 days ago it was updated. Um, so yeah, really good stuff, really good tools. If you want to know like what are the possibilities that you can run on your own closed network without other people sticking their hands in on your stuff, this I think is a really good selection of tools, and I definitely encourage people to check it out. As always, I want to thank everyone for their support. I want to thank everyone for downloading. Do not forget April 13th through April 14th, 24-hour stream, podnutz.com/support Eric. If you want to come out, hang around, don't hesitate. The only rules that apply are the rules that always apply with Podnutz. We can talk about anything as long as it's family friendly. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about any of those kinds of things because all it makes is for arguments and for enemies. And I'll just say, I really don't like it when politics uh, go into my Linux distributions either. Um, I'll end with saying, I've known in my life people who are extremely sexist, extremely ageist, extremely racist, and anti-Semitic. We've all known people like that. The people I know who act like that 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, typically always act the very same way. Sometimes they just do a better job of hiding it. Right now, there's a major Linux distribution out there that I will not run, I will not support, I will not get behind, I will not take part in, I will not help propagate. It's because they spread hate. They're doing a really good job hiding it now. Last I heard, they were making thousands of dollars a month, but none of their development team basically gets any money. He's just taking all the money, and I don't know what he's doing with it, but I know he's not giving it back to the greater community, while taking advantage of this community. So just do a little research on who you're supporting, do a little research on what you're downloading, do a little research what you're installing. Try to support people with ideas and ideals that meet yours. And nobody's perfect. Don't expect you're going to find somebody exactly like you, thinking exactly like you, but try to. And then trust me when I tell you, everyone will be happier from the ground up. And never, ever, ever forget, if you do not have root, you do not know who does. Thanks for coming out, everybody.